The Super Cub Birthday Build 2026 Part 2. Yeah, and I shall call him Cubby. Before we continue with my birthday build this year, let's recap. I figured out how to get the sound that I want, that Jaguar sound, using my graphic equalizer, knocking out all of the bass frequencies, leaving myself with the mids and the trebles, and I figured out that I can get that tone with a $2 capacitor that I am dubbing the Cubby capacitor. Well, the problem is that only works when I'm in line in my system, and I would want to take that sound with me. So, I can attach that capacitor to a tone knob and then roll out the bass as I roll on the pot. But the problem with that is, that gives me only that option with a single tone guitar. So it becomes apparent I picked the wrong guitar. What I really want to do is recreate this, my G&L Doheny. Now, the main secret to this sound is the MFD pickups. I get that. And I still haven't figured out how to get those into a mini. But it also has an interesting way of setting up the tone. One knob rolls out treble. The other rolls out bass. It's a passive treble bass system, a PTB system. And I can use two tone knobs if I pick the right guitar for that. So I've picked this one, the Essex. It's a great little guitar, and I love the sound of it. I love the tones that it gives me, and I love the feel of it. It's one of those guitars that has a 23-inch scale, which is long for this particular room, but it's also the closest to the Jaguar, at least as far as the guitars in the room that are functional are considered. Ones with the tremolo. I can choke off that bass signal on one tone knob and make it a high-pass filter. Then I get that chimey, surfy tone. But I can also put a capacitor on the other tone knob and run all of the signal through both, and that will let me dial out the treble. See, that Cubby capacitor will give me the sound that I want. In a real sense, it'll create something similar to that strangle switch of a Fender Jaguar and give me the variance of tone that I used to get with my G&L Doheny. It'll give me almost every tone that I want from that type of guitar. All I have to do now is take a guitar that I like and pretty much rip it apart and start from scratch. So, I'm all for that. But the main issue is, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I had to look things up on the interwebs. Alright, I'm going to show this to you, and hopefully this will make some sense. I'm going to draw out the components of the guitar. It's not really a complicated system. For a two-tone knob guitar, you have your switch, you have your volume pot, you have your two tone pots hooked to different pickups, and your output. I'm going to use the closest pot to the volume knob for a treble bleed off, and I'm going to use the one closest to the output jack for a bass bleed off. Now, the first thing that I have to do is think about each piece in terms of what it physically looks like. Not necessarily where it's located within the pick guard, but each pot has these three prongs that stick off of it. And the switch is really only important as far as the hot lead that comes from it. So the first thing I'm going to do is take that ground off the volume pot and bend it back to the back of the pot. It's already done, basically. Then I'm going to worry about hooking up my grounds because I want to make sure that I don't get a lot of hum. I'm going to lead all of the grounds back to the back of the volume pot, from the switch, from each tone pot, and from the output. Now this is where things get strange. Out of the switch, I'm going to run the hot lead not to the input of the volume, but I'm actually going to run it to the middle prong of what I'm going to use for the treble pot. Then I'm going to run it to the middle prong of the bass pot. I'm also going to connect in line a capacitor that serves as the Cubby switch between the middle and the prong on the right. Then I'm going to run a hot lead out of that prong into the input of the volume knob, then out of the output of the volume knob into the hot lead on my output jack. See? Clear as mud. Then I'm going to go back and take a green capacitor, the treble cut or the bass pass, and I'm going to put that in line just like it is on any standard guitar on the treble knob. That gives me my passive treble bass circuit. And as long as I do that, it should give me the same capabilities that I had from that G and L switch. Now the capacitors that I have chosen for this are a 0.033 UF 100 volt mylar film capacitor and a 0.003 UF orange drop 600 volt capacitor. Hopefully that'll complete the circuit the way that I want it. All right, now I would love to tell you that this went exactly as planned, but if you've watched anything at all, you know that's not really the case with just about anything that happens. But the breakdown went exactly as it should have. I got out my little spa kit, cut the strings, took it all apart, and got the thing open. And that, of course, is when I ran into a few problems. I'm only going to show you those. All right, so here's the fun part. We have a red and a white coming in from the output jack. No clue which is which. We have a lot of grounds that are already run. We have a lot of this kind of stuff that's already done. But the problem is I have to decide, would it be easier to go ahead and disconnect all of this and then reconnect it, or to take it off bits and bits and bits and bits? And I'm going to be honest with you, I honestly believe it would be easier to take everything off and reattach it. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start with these grounds to go ahead and pull them. And I'm just going to make everything in this guitar ground black. I have at least figured out that this white wire is actually the ground coming from the output, and this red wire is the hot. And I know that because it's coming off of the hot out on what is the volume knob. So those I'm not going to reattach, and I will still keep this white wire as the ground if I remember that is in fact what it's supposed to be. All right. I only have 4 of these, so let's hope I get this right. I'm going to try to go in from the bottom. Go in from the bottom like that. And then bend it back. Still need another pair of hands. All right. No, 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 don't fall out. You're right where I want you. All right, now I need to secure that mess. It's making contact with the pot. That I don't need because that gives me an automatic ground, which gives me a short. All right, I don't know how to fix that. That is a problem. Basically what I've done is I've managed to make a bridge of solder from the hot to the back of the pot. What that does is creates a ground problem that I've got to somehow get that solder out of there, and the only way I know to do it is just to keep scraping away with the soldering iron there. Now it is no longer making contact with the pot. It's clear. Let's see if I can do this one any cleaner. Didn't create so much of a nightmare for myself, but question is that capacitor in there, is this stable? It appears to be. All right, so that's one. Everything else came together just as expected. So as long as I have the strings off, I might as well hit it with that waterless wash and wax and get things clean. All the pickups, they weren't disconnected from the switch, so everything checked out okay. I was able to confirm that the tone knobs were doing something, even if I didn't know exactly what they were doing. The whole thing actually took me a couple of hours because I did take my time, but also because I continued to look things up and double check the wiring diagram. It still doesn't entirely make sense to me, but that's the way the experts say it needs to be done. And sometimes I just try to follow directions as best I can. And that's what led me here. All right, so now we have the high pass and low pass. High pass, low pass installed. We've got the rear pickup on. Volume is turned at 10. The tone for the high pass is open. In other words, it is not engaged. Roll that back. That's the standard basic strat control. Now let's see. Ooh. So, let's go ahead and run it direct. And now, here's some sample tones recorded over the next half hour. this is where it originally stopped. I mean, I had the guitar that I wanted. I had the tones that I wanted. It was all so simple. My birthday build cost me under a couple of dollars. I mean, come on. How often does that happen? Well, as it turns out, I took it apart in order to make it look a little better. Because, well, I can't leave well enough alone. So it is all cleaned up. It's all tuned up. It's all toned up. Birthday build. Kind of let me off a little cheap this year, don't you think? If only there was something else that we could add to make it more mini. Now, for people that are wondering why we picked the SX instead of some of the CNZs, I believe it's because of the depth. I know that this goes too deep for the CNZ audio guitars. I'm hoping it doesn't go too deep for the SX. So did it fit? Yeah, barely. All right, so here is the verdict on all of this. The passive bass and treble setup, I love this thing. I've got it in a couple of different guitars. Absolutely, really enjoy it. Of course, 5-position HD switch, really, really nice. It came out really well. I actually got the pickups wired correctly, and these are not expensive pickups, but I love the way they sound. I think they're very versatile. And as it turns out, the Vega trim is a lot more fun. I still can't play it all that well, and I don't think I've set it up correctly. I'm still throwing the E out of tune, and I think that's just where I haven't set it up all the way. But all things considered, I'm pretty happy with my birthday build this year.